So I finally got around to decoding the Kingsman, and boy, was it a whopper. The film actually dovetailed right into the headlines and title of this show today. And that seems to happen a lot lately around here, doesn't it? Things that we just happen to be decoding or talking about fitting right into the headlines. In this case, the zombie apocalypse. Now, welcome to the channel, everybody. We're going to get into the Kingsman. Now, the powers that be want us to believe that CV-19 is causing people to lose it. But I think it's a combination of things. I don't think it's just whatever this is. I think that there's another component to this that could be linked into the V scene. Now, look at this article. Now, this is the latest in a series of articles since CV-19 started. And these articles seem to indicate that some kind of neurological condition occurs when you contract CV-19. And isn't it weird how another neurological symptom occurs when you, quote unquote, get CV-19? You can't smell or taste. That's some kind of nerve damage. Now, most people don't realize this, but this is a typical side effect of getting any cold or flu. It's called asomia. And according to Keck Medicine of USC, this is common. It says here, if you have a cold, you may be all too familiar with the stuffy nose that makes it hard to smell. In fact, both common cold and the flu can cause temporary anosmia. And so this loss of taste and smell is a common symptom. Why are they making it sound like it's so crazy and freaky that people that have CV-19 are experiencing the same thing? This is typical. It's typical. Now, this story isn't the first one claiming that CV-19 causes psychological, paranoid, violent ideations and delusions. They started leaking these kinds of stories just after we had decoded I Am Legend. Remember that? The zombie apocalypse in that film? And all of a sudden, we started seeing these stories about people who get zombie-like symptoms. And here's what I think is going on. I believe they're preparing us and pre-programming us to believe that the virus is the cause of what's coming, not the VC itself. Now remember, in I Am Legend, it was the cure that caused the apocalypse, not the illness. So there's a clue right there. Let's read through this real quick before we get into this Kingsman episode or movie. It says, first CV, then psychosis, the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. Remember, this is the newest story in a long line of stories that have been released about this subject. This was the Washington Post, New York Times. So this isn't some one-off news outlet. They want people to read this. This is why we're reading it. Not that we believe it. We're just reading it because it's programming, right? Let me go in here real quick and say hello to you guys. Welcome, everyone. Let's get back into this. This is nuts. Ivan Egerton pulled his wife Amy into their bedroom closet, telling her not to bring her cell phone. Look at this. The cell phone again. Now, this is going to be the subject matter of the Kingsman because it's all about these cell phones are what caused the apocalypse. I believe people are following me, he said, his eyes flaring with fear. He described the paranoid delusions haunting him, that people in cars driving into their suburban Seattle cul-de-sac were spying on him, that a SWAT officer was crouching in a bush in their yard. It was a drastic change for Egerton, 49, a usually unflappable former Marine and risk-taking documentary photographer whose most recent adventure involved exploring the Red Sea for 2 months in a submarine. He was accustomed to stress and said that neither he nor his family previously experienced any mental illness. But in December, after a mild case of CV19, he was seized by a kind of psychosis that turned his life into a nightmare. Now, what is going on here? It says here his experience reflects a phenomenon that doctors are increasingly reporting: psychotic symptoms emerging weeks after the infection in some people with no previous mental illness. Do you see how they're setting this up for some kind of zombie apocalypse? This is what I believe is happening right now. Now, these bouts of paranoia often increase to violent impulses. Oh, it says others have, like Egerton, have no violent impulses but become almost obsessively paranoid. Well, what do they think's going to happen when everything you turn on TV tells you that that if you're not careful and you don't wear a mask, you don't social distance, you're going to die, right? So some people are getting violent ideations and some are not. Mostly it's paranoia. Now, in the Kingsman, 5G whiz is what causes a signal that induces a zombie apocalypse. And Samuel L. Jackson plays the bad guy in the film. And he gives away these free SIM cards and free internet to the entire world. Well, what happens is when he activates these SIM cards, people fly into a zombie-like rage and kill everyone around them. Remember Bo Mama's phones that he gave out for free? And now, of course, all of these phones, or many of them, have been activated by the T-Man's 5G whiz and beyond legislation that he signed in. These are two wings of the same bird. That's why your dollar bill has an eagle on the back. Now, in the montage that I'm going to show you next, the signal is called V-Day, like vaccine day, right? Which further confirms that it's probably the cure, not the disease, that will begin this apocalypse. Now, we heard this term V-Day before, used in the British series that came out the year before called Utopia. Kingsman came out in 2014. Utopia came out in 2013. And in the Utopia series, V-Day was the day the entire world received the vaccine for the flu. Now, as you're going to see next, the first time that Samuel L. Jackson tests V-Day, it's in a church, a far right-leaning church in Kentucky, where a pastor is giving a sermon. And in the sermon, he's condemning sin and acts of sin, but then he goes into a racist tirade. And in one part, you're going to see we're going to call it the Fed Confederate flag behind him in the backdrop, hanging from the church. And this was all in 2014, I believe this is before the T-Man ever even wanted to run. And now look at what the focus is. This was pre-programming for exactly what we're going through right now. And what they're doing with this is they're stereotyping Christian right patriots. And they're attempting to pigeonhole them into these hate groups. Now, one of the Kingsmen, this guy right here, I believe, is in the church chasing a bad guy. And Samuel L. Jackson hits the button when the cell phone signal goes out. And he ends up basically killing most of the people in the church. So this is the race conflict that the elite are trying so hard to stoke, right? They've been working on this for decades. They want you to believe that white is bad. In fact, they want you to believe that all white is bad. In fact, 3 years after this released, we had the deadliest church screwing, we're going to call it, in U.S. history. Here it is right here. This was November, the 5th of November, by the way. Many of you will remember this. In 2017, in Texas, in which 27 people lost their life. And it was the deadliest screwing in a church in America in modern history. So, back to this V-Day thing with the cell signal and the SIM cards and the 5G whiz. So, Samuel L. Jackson
Lancelot was
gives the stereotypical diabolical speech. You know, how all the films have that. The bad guy's like on his soapbox, and he's telling everybody why he had to do what he had to do. Well, Samuel L. Jackson gives his speech at 58 seconds left, or it was actually 58 minutes left, and 57 minutes left. The speech is a duration of 58 to 57 minute countdown. And of course, 57 is code for 5G whiz, because 7 is G in the alphabet, right? We already figured out what 58 means. That is the T-Man. Now, let's play some of this out here.
investigating a group of mercenaries who are experimenting with biological weaponry.
Synthetic cathinones. They put it in the water supply of a guerrilla army base. Rage, cannibalism, multiple fatalities. Insurgents turned on one another. Indisputably the work of our mercenaries, but no trace of any chemicals of any kind.
So that's, of course, Samuel L. Jackson's V-Day, his device that is in everyone's free SIM card phones. That's interesting because a lot of the people in this church that you're going to see next have the free SIM card. Even though they depict them as racist, they have very black Samuel L. Jackson's SIM card phone, his free phone, right? So here she's, the signal is already starting to take place, and it's, in this particular instance, they're aiming the signal just at this church, right? And this is like what we call this revenge racism, okay? So the black people who watch this are jumping up and down cheering. They're trying to instill hate in black people against white people. So Samuel L. Jackson, who is black, of course, shoots a signal into an all-white church, and all these people end up taking each other out. And this is supposed to make black people like cheer for this. It's really sick what these people do. They don't want to get rid of racism. They're stoking it at every turn. So what you can do is not give in to this programming. If you're a black person, you find yourself cheering because all these people are getting hurt, you're part of the problem because you're believing the programming that's been given to you. Don't believe it. Now, this Kingsman, as the signal comes online, proclaims his allegiance to Satan, and he starts taking all these people out. Now, of course, they have these people, they try to dovetail racism with the far right, which the two don't even always dovetail together. Why can't people just be white and Christian and be okay? Which they are. Most are. But they want you to believe that all these people have this latent racism hiding beneath the skin. You guys, the true racists are the people running the country. They're the true racists because they're the powerful men. And it's not about color for them. It's about wealth and power. They could care less what color you are. That's why we had a black president. It's about wealth and power and ability to control the people below them by dividing us and making us go all crazy with the signal, right? Which is all the programming, 5G whiz. They make us all go crazy and hurt each other, burn each other's things down, buildings, churches. This is crazy. You guys, we're in the zombie apocalypse. It's happening right now. Something happened with 5G whiz and beyond because people are at each other's throats. And what I've been trying to do since day one on this channel is to get everybody to knock it off. Stop the right-left fighting because that's the signal. That's the apocalypse they want to have happen. Now, let's keep watching this as the violence ensues. Now, I didn't put too much of this in here because I know some of you are sensitive to this. You will drown in the flood. So there it is. It's V-Day. Like the infidel you are. She's yelling at him because he claimed that he served Satan just before this scene. So of course they're all going off on him.
That's it, I can't watch this. Get over here.
Now think about how sick this is. Think about how sick this is. Right now, you can go onto YouTube and you can pull up the Kingsman and watch it, and you have to pay YouTube, right? And this is all acceptable. And the channels are all monetized and ads and this and that and paying them. YouTube's making a bunch of money every time somebody watches the Kingsman. But yet, we can't even talk about the programming of it without getting flagged, demonetized, taken down. You guys, we're walking a very fine line on this channel. We do our best to be as careful as we can about what we say. That's why we're still here. Most channels who tried it couldn't do it. It just was too much because it's too hard to shift and pivot like that to try to stay on the platform for a lot of people. You know, you have to watch every word you say almost. And we've been able to do it. But we're on a very fine line. So this is the hypocrisy of it. They'll put stuff like this out there, which clearly shows race baiting and all this stuff and violent acts toward people, a group of people, a specific group of people. Like, okay, what if this was a white guy and this was all black people? Would that be acceptable? No, but because they're all white, all of a sudden that's acceptable. See the hypocrisy of this? And shame on platforms who give into that hypocrisy, who try to say, oh, that's different. That's different. No, it's not different. It's the exact same thing. The only thing is you swap the skin color out. Do you see now what I'm talking about? This is why you don't give into the right-left paradigm. That's the trap.
One's been affected, whether they have a SIM card or not. And we get the added benefit of wiping out the Kingsman.
I killed all those people. I wanted to.
Clever, isn't it? So everyone's been affected, whether they have a SIM card or not.
What did you do to me? I had no control.
I didn't expect it to be that effective.
What kind of response are we talking?
100%.
Transmitted through your nasty free SIM cards, I assume.
In simple terms, it's a neurological wave that triggers the centers of aggression and switches off inhibitors.
Now, you're going to look behind him and look, well, what do we have here? A Confederate flag, right? And so this, you guys, this was pre-Trump. This is the pre-T-Man era. But yet, here they are stoking this because what is front and center right now in the news? It's all about this, and they're removing all of this. It's happening right now. Everything you're seeing in this is happening right now. Buildings are burning. Now, they don't want to talk about that, but it's actually happening. They want the white people to rise up and say enough is enough. That was the whole goal of putting the T-Man in place, to try to stoke this. I'm shocked it hasn't happened yet. Somebody left a comment. Now, I don't know the details. I don't know if the comment was real, but someone said there was a boy in a train. He was a white boy, and he was in a train. And he was sitting there just listening to his headphones. And there was an African-American guy that came onto the train. The boy didn't even look up. Before the black guy got off the train, he socked and kicked the white kid in the head. Well, someone witnessed all this, and they said, "What happened? What did you do?" He goes, "I didn't do anything. I didn't even look at the guy." These kinds of things are happening all over the place. And I told you I witnessed it on the airplane. Just white people just getting punked. And they're just allowing it to happen because they want you to get mad. They want you to organize. Now, here's the sick part of it. As soon as you organize, guess what happens? The FBI is on your tail in these honey traps, and they will sweep you up before you can send off 4 emails saying, hey, we got to do something about this. That's what's going on. That was the setup. They're not going to allow the race war, but what they're going to do is stoke it And then as soon as people pop up, they're taking you out. How is it that me, a black person, sees this and very other few people get it? It's because people are wrapped up in the white left paradigm. I said white left, right left paradigm. Black people watch this and they go, yeah, get him. Get him. Yeah, all those years of slavery. Yeah, that's sick. Let's keep watching this.
You get a virus, you get a fever. That's the human body raising its core temperature to kill the virus. Global warming is the fever. Mankind is the virus. Planet Earth works the same way. If we don't reduce our population ourselves, there's only one of two ways this can go. The host kills the virus, or the virus kills the host. We're making our planet sick. A cull is our only hope. Either way,
The result is the same. Sometimes a culling is the only way to ensure that a species survives. The virus dies.
So Valentine's going to take care of the population problem himself.
Well, if we don't do something, nature will.
So there, of course, is V-Day. Now, in this case, it's Valentine Day, which is Samuel L. Jackson's name in the film. But look at this. Look at the. I mean, you can't make this up, you guys. These are all the numbers we've been talking about. Trump's penthouse is on the 66th floor of a 58-story building. So there's this chip that's implanted in the back of these people's necks. We'll get into that a little bit more as the decode unfolds.
what's wrong with them?
I don't know. Could have something to do with the mass genocide.
Give me the mic.
Give me the mic. Look at the time. This is when his diabolical speech begins. And it starts at 58 minutes, V-Day. Okay? This is so obvious. Now, the way this all unfolds is that he starts to give this speech at 58 and 57 seconds, or 58 and 57 minutes of the countdown. And of course, 58 is a coded number, and 57 is a coded number. 57 is 5G whiz. Because why? Because 7 is the, G is the 7th letter of the alphabet. Now, behind him, you're going to see twin pandas. This is another discovery we made here on this channel recently. Actually, about a year ago, we started talking about twins, and then lo and behold, in the mainstream media, they're telling us we're having a twin birth population surge as a result of CV19. So, Sam L gives this speech underground after he's given out these passes to the elite to join him in this lavish bunker until the apocalypse passes. They're each given an implant behind their ear that detonates if they threaten to tell or do not comply with his demands. So they're given asylum, they're given safe haven, but they probably got to pay for it, which makes him rich, of course. Now, Samuel L. Jackson should be ashamed of himself to be doing films like this, stoking division and hate. He should be ashamed of himself. He is a complete sellout and has done nothing for my race in these roles except continue the divide. All for money. He's rich, living in his mansion, while all of us are fighting with each other. Now, we had already covered all this implant thing behind the ear, remember? Remember the T-Man's warp speed pick? Monsef Sluowi, who's developing this bioelectronic implant that hacks the central nervous system? Remember that? Can't smell or taste? That's the nervous system too. Something's going on with the nervous system, which goes all the way back to the zombie apocalypse. It is a nervous disorder. It's actually, the whole zombie genre is based off of getting what is that called when dogs and cats get ill and they start turning into like zombies? I'm drawing a blank here. I'm sorry, you guys. What is it called when a dog and a cat gets sick? It's called the, oh, geez. Let's let this catch up for a minute. Check in with you guys. This is unreal. So, nerve damage ensues, and you get this crazed, out of your mind animal, which is basically what's happening to all of us.
Hey, I want to remind you that today is a day of celebration. We must put aside all thoughts of death. We should honor their sacrifice.
She got my number to call me back. I got a new phone.
And their role in saving the human race. The birth of a new age. We mustn't mourn those who give their lives today. You are the chosen people. We must put aside doubt and guilt. When folk tell their kids the story of Noah's Ark, is Noah the bad guy?
So, there you saw the twin pandas, and this is just unreal. We talked all about the twins, and you heard the speech at 58 minutes, 57 minutes. I zoomed that in so you could see the time.
Is God the bad guy? How about the animals marching 2 by 2? Let's turn those frowns upside down.
Let's turn those frowns upside down. Now, if you look on the left of your screen, that's the frown turned upside down. Those are the eclipses that seem to mark key points in the spamdemic. Smile now, cry later. So animals get rabies, and that is what the whole genre of zombies is based off of, rabies. Rabies causes a neurological condition. It affects the nerves, and I can't remember the exact, what was it? It was called midline encephalitis or something like that, which is the same side effect that some of the people got when they took the VC early on. Remember that? Spinal neurological conditions. So none of this is a stretch. It's actually happening.
Let's turn those frowns upside down. Let's turn those frowns upside down.
Turn those frowns upside down.
Eat, drink, and party! All right, everybody on your feet. Count down to V-Day. Welcome into New Age.
So, of course, this is everything that's happening right now. This film came out in December 2014. And go back here. There it is. December 2014. Now, I didn't show you the extended violent scenes of the entire world turning on each other. But as Valentine turns the switch on, the world devolves into one big battle royal. And to me, it almost feels like they already flipped the switch on 5G Whiz. It's starting. Their emotions are cranked up. Erratic behavior between us all. The racial divide. And I'm wondering if they haven't already released this 5G Whiz device. Remember when T-Man signed 5G Whiz and Beyond during the spamdemic, and we were all scratching our heads? And that was the first big clue that I knew I needed to focus on him. I said, you guys, why is he doing this while we're on lockdown? Why now? Of all times in the last 4 years that he's been president, he could have done that at any other time. And we talked about how we already had all talked about how dangerous 5G Whiz was and how damaging it is. If you don't know about that, go to Deborah Tavares' channel. She been talking about this for like 5 years or longer. And then all of a sudden, we all just accepted that he wanted to take us 5G Whiz and beyond. And then remember the letter that shall not be named said, oh, he's changed the frequency. It's now healthy for everybody. People wonder why I talk about the T-Man so much? Because all of the stuff that he put in place is still happening. Bo Jiden is continuing the 5G whiz and beyond. Okay? And I look around and I look at all of us, and I look how deeply divided we all are. People attacking each other. Hate is on the rise. It's spiraling out of control. And it really feels to me like the beginning of what we're already in, a zombie apocalypse. Now, we're going to take a look at the sequels to this film. There's like 2 or 3 sequels to The Kingsman. We're going to take a look at that. But before we do, I have to issue some clarification on yesterday's show. On yesterday's show, we were talking about what was going on down in Florida, spring break. Well, apparently there's some issues going on down there. There's violence, and it's not being covered by the media. And it seems to be some provocateurs. I don't know. I don't know if it's B to the L to the M, but they're basically going down there and rioting almost. Have you guys heard anything about this? A couple of you sent me some private messages yesterday and said, Casey, you got to take another look at what's going on down in Miami. Because it's not just that people are spring breaking. There's like violence occurring and damaging property. So there's something to this. And it seems to be divided along the lines of color. So let's go into the chat. I see Joanne Steen in the mod seat this morning. Good to see you, Joanne. Joanne's been a mod for about 5 years, I think. I don't really add a lot of new moderators, so all right. Let's let this chat catch up. Yes, they're trying to cause these race wars. This is what they're working on. So just don't give in to it. If anything, talk to people on the other side and try to tell them, hey, look, don't you understand that it's not you and I not getting along? It's what's coming from the top down. That's the best thing you can do to reach out to someone. Many of you have already heard the story of the neighbor in Arkansas. And if there was ever any definition of someone who had a race problem, he was the one. But I talked to the guy. And by the end of our conversation, he invited me to go hunting with him. Even though he had moved to that area to get away from people of certain colors, is what he told me straight out. So that would be the definition of racist, right? If there was ever one, that would be it. I don't have a problem with someone who has an aversion to someone because of my color, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to reach out to that person. That's a perfect opportunity to open that person's eyes and let them know that we're just people. And it shouldn't be about color. It should be about what kind of person you are. And I'm the kind of person that you could be best friends with. And so this is what we should all be doing. Not continuing the divide. Not cheering for race revenge movies like The Kingsman. Look, I know there's a lot of stuff that people have experienced. My mother experienced things personally when she was growing up. Grew up in the era where you couldn't drink from the same fountain as other people. But here we are, and things have changed. But it's the powers that be that are trying to keep it all going. They're trying to keep the divide going. So that's about it. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I'll get into these sequels today. I'll probably watch the next one. Hopefully put together a montage for tomorrow. Maybe we'll have a live show on the next part of The Kingsman. Let me see which one's next. Let's take a look at that before we pop off here, so you guys can see that. All right, so it looks like 2017 was the next one, and that's called The Golden Circle. Well, that'll be interesting. So we'll check that one out. Let's take a look and see if there's anything in the. So now all of a sudden, so after this had launched, the T-Man was already president. So we'll see what's next. We'll see when it released. September 18th in London, September 20th in UK, and September 22nd in the US. So we'll take a look at that one next. I love you all. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.